pump suede with the business candy stripe. She's not playing with it. Myself, we're actually part of the Suffolk University's Black Alumni Network. She is part of my team. We do the mentoring for the students of color in the law school, business school, and the College of Arts and Science. Over the past year plus, 2 years, they've had me on there. They've been wringing my neck. They've been having me come back for 3 years now. I'm about to retire. I wanted to bring her in because she works in the space of wellness, and I wanted to make sure everyone knew a little bit about what she does, her company, but also a little bit about her background and her connections to the community. So at this point, I will hand it over to Yolanda Burrell.
Thank you, Hakim. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me tonight. Happy Thursday. I hope everybody's well. I see you guys getting your energy to keep you going and thinking, so that's good. I'm glad I was timed with the food. That's important. So, yeah, I'm Yolanda. I graduated from Suffolk University with my MBA in 2018. I graduated from UMass Boston in 2011. I've been in healthcare for now 21 years, a long time, and seen a lot of the changes in healthcare and just wanted to rise to the occasion and get inserted into the community to keep us healthy, because I realized that it doesn't matter at the end of the day if we're not healthy, we can't do anything. So I started a company called Vida Sana, which means healthy life in Latin. I'm originally Cape Verdean descent. And so just wanted to have something that impacts not only my people, but people of color and people across the diaspora. So as you can see, my logo, I thought of you, is basically a woman coming out of sprouting, right? And it's a tree because it resonates with life. And so that's really a part of it. And the slogan is because everyone deserves a healthy life, a better life. But as our alumni spoke of, you're always pivoting with a business, right? It's like you start off with something and then you end up over here, right? Like I intended to start off with this and then ended up over here. So originally I wanted to start off with working older people out. So people over 65 and over, 70, just being in healthcare, I started to see a lot of comorbidities and disease and just things impact, especially people of, our people of color. And so I started off by working out like an 85-year-old woman. And she's like, work me out. I'm like, oh my God, you're outrunning me. But it just resonated with me how, and she was saying that she was the one last person standing in her family and her friends, her husband, everyone. And what inspired that is that she got up every day. She's an Irish lady. She got up every day and she did Hail Marys around the track. And about 9, I would say 10 times, and she was brisk, and I'm like, no, this lady is not about to outwork me. I mean, I'm pretty fit, I work out, but she was just going. And so when we started talking, she's like, you have so much to offer to people. And so I'm saying, I'm in healthcare and I'm seeing people 40 years younger than her come in and can't even stand up, right? Need a cane or something with assistance. So that is what kind of galvanized and put that battery in my back to say, if we're not healthy, we don't have anything, right? And so that's what Vida Sana, the origination of that and where it came from. And so I'm gonna talk to you guys tonight about business operations. I know you guys are in the infancy stage of building a business. I heard some of your missions and your visions, which I think is great. And as Nike spoke earlier, that can change too. It's fluid, right? It's always moving. And so what I want to talk about is business operations as a whole, because I think when we think of our business holistically, there's a lot of elements that sometimes we don't think about, but we as the business owner have to know, right? At least we have to know it. Even if we're not the expert, we have to have a general sense of what's happening, okay? So we're gonna get started. Okay, yeah. So the basics to business operations is, like, once you have your, if it's an LLC, if it's a C Corp, or S Corp, whatever your structure is, you need to think about the physical operations of your business, right? And so business operations includes our locations, the processes, the resources, and the other tools that need for you to transform input into output, right? And so your input is going to be your labor, your material, capital, right? And then your output is going to be that service or that good that you're able to deliver to the end user, all right? If you maximize your output for profitability, that means that basically you have to make sure you're organizing your input, right? So if you know the term garbage in, garbage out, same thing, right? You have to be able to really put that in. And as a business owner, it's going to be essential for your operations to function well and to integrate with one another effectively. And we'll get into more about how that looks. And so the day-to-day management is overall the biggest thing. And first, you need to review the production process. So whether your business provides a good, a service, or both, you need to understand that it's necessary to produce that end product, right? So even if you have a raw product or you're delivering really a service, right? And so at the end user is getting that website or getting that package and now being fueled to do what they need to do. But if you don't understand that production process, that's like the first thing, how am I going to actually produce this end product? So that's very, very important. The second thing I would say is to review the production standards, which is consider the type of production involved in your service. Is it one person? Does it rely on one person? Do you rely on two people? Or is the product, how are you gonna get the product from this phase to the next phase, right? How are you gonna actually lift that product or service up into the production phase? And then the third phase would be the fulfillment process. So what is your process to make sure that you get this quality product or service to your end user in a timely fashion, right? So how are you gonna fulfill that, like your orders, right? As Neke, I'm gonna get it right, I swear. Neke alluded to earlier, she started off for free and then more people started coming. So then in her mind, she has to think, how am I gonna fulfill this demand, right? Because now the demand is there, so how is she gonna actually supply that? And so the fourth thing would be, which is very, very important, I tell a lot of my mentees, inventory management, right? This process allows inventory to exist, and then really gives you the tools and the equipment to provide what you need when you need it without enormous stress to your capital, right? So inventory exists to improve the level of service provided by the business. And then the fifth thing would be billing and collections. billing is a process of invoicing and customers goods and services. That's probably better, yeah. Customer goods and services and collecting overdue payments. Now, if you are afraid of asking for money, you don't need to be in this room right now, because you need to be able to have your value proposition and be able to receive revenue from your service or your product, okay? And then, as we've seen, you can start from $10 and all the way up to $1,000, but it's because she knows that her value proposition is worth that, right? You did your research and seen what else was out there. And so it's very important to be effective, to make sure that you are invoicing and that you're collecting. There's a thing called net 30, net 60 that you're gonna hear a lot about. And what that means is that whoever owes you has 30 days to pay you or 60 days to pay you before you start adding on fees and things of that nature, okay? So
talk a little bit about how the net 30 and also how sometimes if an individual pays early, they get a kickback rebate of maybe 5-7%.
Yes.
If they pay promptly, either before time or on time, there's like a 5 or 10. So talk a little bit about that, incentivizing any client or customer to say, hey, if you pay early, you get 5% off, 7%
Yes.
off your bill.
Yes, good point. As we know, it's a psychology, right? And so we want to make sure we're closing the deal or selling the product. At the end of the day, that's what we want to make sure that we're doing. And so to incentivize your customer or your end user, yes, you're going to have your terms and conditions, which are going to be mainly in writing of the 30, but that incentive, if they pay at 15 days, so there's something called a net 15 that allows you to get a discount, or like Hakim said, a rebate, or maybe a kickback if you refer, something of that nature. But it is something to kind of incentivize the customer that if you pay early, you're gonna get a discount, and most of them like that. But again, I want to emphasize that your billing and collection process has to be efficient.
Do you have any suggestions for streamlining or systems that you can put in place? Like, working with higher ed institutions for me has been a thorn in my side. And like, I could charge them 10 racks, but the amount of time it takes for them to pay me out is generally where it gets hairy for me. And I'm trying to figure out as we speak how to handle that. Outside of requiring a deposit, you still will get some pushback from certain spaces. Real life story, somebody told me last week they held the invoice because they thought there was an extra 0 on it. And we had to have a conversation about ethics and so forth and how you approach small businesses, because it gets extremely hairy with accounts payable in certain industries.
Yes, that's a good point. I would say, are you dealing directly with their finance department?
I'm learning to.
Okay. So you want to talk to the people who write the checks. You always want to make those connections and those relationships to either whoever the CFO is, whoever the accountant is, of that vendor that you're going to start doing that relationship with.
So that's like a first touch point outside of whoever's closing.
Yes, exactly. If it is, let's just say it's, I don't know, the director of events, right? And that's your connection in that actual company. You want to then ask for the finance people. You always want to ask for who's holding the purse, always, because they need to be in the room and they need to know what your terms are, what your obligation is, what, the service or whatever that you're going to provide for them, the service or product. But they need to know so that you're aware, because when you have too many middle people who are interpreting or communicating and they don't really have, they may have influence, but they don't have authority to sign anything, it's kind of like a waste of your time. And it will get you frustrated.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Are you giving them?
I do. I've given them contracts. I've done MOUs. And like this, I think this is what I needed to hear today. Is
You
like
need the
cut out-
finance person.
Cut out just trusting the coordinator or whatever.
Yes,
or-
that's where it lies. So I'm glad, yeah.
Cut out the middleman and get to the person
Right to
that
the
cuts
purse,
checks.
right. And
Yeah,
so
get to the
I
purse.
work in healthcare. I actually work in a hospital, and as we continue to, I'm always like, is finance at the table? Because it doesn't make sense for us to be repetitive in this meeting if they're not at the table. So make sure someone from finance department is there.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
So something that's been coming up is I, in this, in this space too, I realize that some folks feel like for small businesses that are really dependent on getting paid, like we should be paid at the day of service, instead of waiting that net 30. What is your thoughts on that? Especially for creative folks.
Yes, push it, right? And so the thing about business and the thing about time is that it's always changing, right? And so just because another small business or somebody did it like that and they, were okay with getting paid in 30 days, but now if that's a narrative and that's something that, you see people doing, then I would push that. As long as you can be able to articulate your value proposition and make that customer feel that you are gonna get that service as if they paid you 30 days later, then yeah, go for it. I mean, why not have a mix, right? You're getting paid the first day and you're getting paid on day 30.
I just feel like for me, I can't put myself in that situation to not get paid when I provide services, right, as an artist. So to cover myself, I do the deposit, I do the contract. We have those conversations about what is expected of me as a service provider and of my client, right? Like, oh Lord, real story, right? I do photography. This one person I've known most of my life hired me for an event. Lo and behold, the event was a wedding. Events versus weddings are very different, right? And the pricing, everything, and how I dress, right? So she told me it was like a party. I dressed with like distressed jeans and my logo, my logo shirt. And I got that. I was super embarrassed, right? Because I'm not presentable. I'm not presenting my brand the way that I want to at a wedding, right? She said it was a party. She walks in a wedding dress. I'm like,
That's crazy.
and I'm gonna keep it a buck. I was so angry with her. I will never work with her again. I provided her the service I said I would provide, right? I was so professional. But if she ever called me again, I'd be like, ooh, I'm gonna refer you somewhere else. And then that person I refer them to, bam. Watch out, because, ask the question. So for me, it was about, hey, I trusted this person too much because of a surface level relationship, right? And because of that trust, I lost out on thousands of dollars. Right? She had the contract, she did the deposit. When I tell you, she slipped through in the wedding, I was like, ow! You played me 3 times from Sunday. This is crazy. So definitely make sure I need my money in my Skrilla and I need the details, right? So I'll have multiple conversations via email or, in person, whatever they prefer. But we're going to make sure we know exactly what we're expecting and exactly what I'm providing.
Do you mind if we save questions to the end? Also, it's a good measure to write things down. It helps you retain and it also helps you manifest. So if you can write it down, then that means it will let you know if the question's even valuable enough if she hasn't gone through it through the discussion. So for everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so in summary, a business, no matter how simple or complicated, has interrelated functions. So as we know, it's just think of it as always churning. Just think of that hamster on the wheel. It's always moving. Business operations, it's the main thing about business operations is the stability of your business. How stable is it, right? And even though you may not have a separate department or separate employees of each of these operational areas, the functions still exist and they're constantly interacting with one another in sometimes ways that are not immediately obvious. And so there should be an established benchmark to assess all these activities and all of the business measures and operations on a regular basis. So it's really like keeping your finger on the pulse, so that you know what's going on as an owner. All right, so I know that was a good one. Good catch. What we talked about really is like managing the business, right? How do you manage it? How do you keep your finger on the pulse? But you're not gonna know everything. You're not gonna know. You probably just know about your business, right? About what it is that you're passionate about. But when considering professional business assistants, you have to identify key operational functions that you will need for your business, like a website, like a logo, right? Like the package, like a host, right? Some people think, oh, I'm just gonna go to a website. Who's gonna host you, right? Who's gonna watch your traffic and your insights, those kind of things. So it's important to identify those key operational functions. And do you need help with accounting and bookkeeping? Yes, you do. Don't let anyone tell you you don't. I don't care how good you are at math, you need an accountant and bookkeeping. Even if you get QuickBooks, right? Mm-hmm. It's a computer system that can do that for you, but you need that system because that's gonna be the impetus of how your business sustains itself. And so the decision may be to contract with a company rather than an individual. Either way, treat these contractual agreements just as you would as hiring employees. You're gonna interview candidates, you're gonna ask questions, you're gonna discuss fees and that. You're gonna discuss your services. You're gonna consider giving them small assignments so you can see like what's their work about, right? And then before you engage in this long-term commitment and this long-term relationship, because even though you may think that this is a customer, something that they call in business is customer lifetime value, right? And to have someone walk in your door for 30 years, 20 years, even in a legacy business, right? There's people who right now go to certain businesses because their grandfather or their grandmother went to that business or their mother went to that business. That's what you call a legacy business, but that's a lifetime customer. So you want to make sure that before you dive into that, where you are going to have this bi-directional of you giving a product or a service and them actually paying for that service, make sure that you interview them, right? Just as well as they're interviewing you, you interview them as well. When identifying the right combination of service, don't let price be the only factor in your decision, right? You may get to someone who you really like, someone gave you a referral, or you seen their work on Instagram, or you went to some of their events, right? Or you seen their product, you wore it, something of that nature. And it has a high price. Don't let that deter you, right? Because high prices are not always a guarantee of better service. Some people overprice just because they do. And then lower prices do not always mean that it's a lower service either, right? Some people are exploring, they're experimenting. Doesn't mean that it's not quality and it's not good. It's just that they haven't really went through that mechanism of price pointing to know that their logo and their package is going to be $1,000. But as she stated, it didn't start like that. So those two things are not indicative of value. And experience and expertise is usually a very good winning combination. Someone who has a little experience, they have that expertise, that's usually a great combination for if you're gonna need some professional business assistance. A rule of thumb in business world is 3 quotes, right? Everything you do in life is 3 quotes. You hear some people say, I'm gonna go for a second opinion, do that. And you're not doing it to you can. But you're not doing it to kind of, point one under the other, but it allows you to see the variation in the industry that you're actually needing that business assistant from. So if you need an attorney, get 3 quotes. You need a bookkeeper, get 3 quotes. Just because you want to be able to have that, like, oh, okay, this one's charging this one's charging that, or they're all the same, right? But again, it's going to give you information, which is going to be really valuable in helping you navigate your business. And so the last thing, but the most important, that I want to talk about is how your business is on paper, right? And so we all have these visions and, we're working hard, but if it doesn't translate to really the paper, it's not going to help you propel to get you to sustain or scale your business, right? So it's one thing to start it, and it usually takes about 0 months to 36 months to really level set your business. So 3 years is like the point, right? You're gonna have to put in that work, put in that sweat equity for at least 3 years before you start to see it level. But in that, while you're seeing that, it's important for you to understand that if you can't prove on paper, you're not going to be able to scale. And scaling is very important because scaling allows you to go into the different phases of business, right? And at the end, some big businesses, they're exiting, right? So they built this business up, they got it to an operating budget and a revenue of, let's just say, for simplicity, $1 million, right? And then they exit. And then the next buyer takes this business and now grows it to $2.7 million, right? This is what happens in business all the time. And so it's important for you to know what your profit and loss is, right? What's your income statement? Your income statement tracks your income over time, and it calculates your net income. It tells you if your business is profitable or not, right? Because some of us are in business, but I'm going to tell you, if your business doesn't make money, it's a hobby, right? It's not, you don't have money coming in where you can now have a income statement. It's a hobby. You can start off for free, but freemiums don't last for long, right? You can give them that freemium price for about 30 days, 45, and then you have to put a price on it. You know why? People don't value, as we see, low cost, right? They're gonna think, oh, if you're giving it for free, oh, it's not. And then there's studies, there's data. It shows that when you give free events, free anything, people are like, oh, I don't come. But if you put a price on it, people are more inclined. So always know that as well. And again, the income statement is going to really be able to tell the profitability of your business. The balance sheet is very important because it represents a picture of your financial condition of your business as of any given date. So I can look on my balance sheet and see January, what was the condition of my business? Was I in debt? Was I up? Was I negative? Was I not? And then I can also look in November of that, following 11 months. And it's gonna tell you how much your business is really worth, right? That's gonna give you that financial condition of your business. What is important for everyone in this room, because we're all just starting, and I include myself because my business is 2018, then you take COVID year. So I'm level setting now, getting my business credit, getting my, being able to go into the bank and say, I want this. But that takes time. And so cash flow is important. This is the most important thing. If you don't get anything from this presentation, you have to get cash flow. Because if not, your business will just dissolve. You can't sustain it. And I mean, we've all seen with, restaurants or places in Boston after COVID, they just couldn't sustain it, right? And it's because of cash flow. You don't have enough to pay your bills. You don't have, like, we can all take, okay, we didn't have no profit today, right? We can take a margin and break even. But when you can't even break even, that's a problem. So most beginning businesses have a crucial need to know on a daily basis how much cash they have at hand and for the immediate future. And so these three things are very important when it comes to your accounting system. And this will allow you to get the basis. So these three things are very important: income statements, your balance sheets, and your cash flow. And then once you're able to sustain that, that's gonna help you build your business credit, right? That's gonna help you go and ask for money, OPM, which is other people's money. You're gonna go ask for OPM because now you can prove that you actually had cash flow. Like, no, I can prove that I sold, right, 200 units of this and collected $2,000. And that's what the bank wants to see. They wanna see if you have cash flow, because why would I give you $50,000 on an idea? You didn't do anything. And so you have to, this is why cash flow proves that you're actually, it's coming in. You have an actual statement that you can invoice. You're showing invoices, right? And so the money is very important. The money is very detriment. And there's a lot of opportunity now and space for us, for people of color, for minority businesses, for women businesses, right? The SBA is doing a host of opportunities to open doors that weren't open to us before, right? And so it's important that we check the box as well. If they say this is what they're requiring, an income statement, a balance sheet, and a cash flow statement, then get that, right? Get that in order, because that's very important.
So talk a little bit about, wrapping up, cost of goods sold. Like, talk a little bit about, like, the part where you have to think through how much does it cost you to sell something to a customer?
Yes. So there's a lot of, and this is a good point, because I'm not a finance person, right? But I'm an operations person. So I lead a lot. I delegate. I don't say I don't say that. I delegate. That's the perfect word.
Right.
So in that, you hear, I'm going to charge, I'm going to use t-shirts because it's the easiest thing, right? I'm going to sell this t-shirt, right? And I'm going to charge $20 for this t-shirt. And I'm like, how did you come up with that price? Where did you get that from? Did you just pick that out? Like, first of all, how much is it taking you? How much does it cost you to get that one t-shirt manufactured? Okay, $350, right? I'm just throwing out numbers. And then how much does it take you to get the actual logo or whatever you need printed on the t-shirt? Another $250. Okay, and then shipping, right? Nobody thinks about taxes, right? And so that's not even encompassed in there. And then you're like, no, I've calculated these three things, so $350, $250, $1. Let's just say it's costing me $7 to make a t-shirt that costs $15. No, it's costing you $24 or $23, right? And so you have to make sure that you're encompassing all of that. What goes into making this product, right? What goes into this t-shirt? And some of the time, a lot of businesses, we don't price that. It's our sweat equity going into it, right? It's our design time, it's that. So that t-shirt should cost $35 and not $15. And why should it cost $35? Because now you have broken down all of the elements that it took to produce this one unit, right? And so then you have, let's just say, if your price was $15, what happens when you need to make a sale? Now you're not even gonna hit your threshold, because now you done underscored yourself. You did not factor in pen to paper pen to paper is essential because the thought, if it's up here, it'll live up there. It needs to be on paper. And so when it's on paper, you can actually see, it actually, to get that person that shirt, they don't live in Boston, they live in Atlanta. So I need to now put an additional, because they live in Atlanta and it's costing me more to ship it to them. You have to factor all that into your cost of goods sold, or not, you won't be able to sustain your business because you're gonna have to have a sale. Sometimes you're stuck with inventory, sometimes things aren't moving, you have to galvanize people, you have to 20% off, 15% off. So you already now are not at that $15 t-shirt. Now you're at 10 or 2 for 10, or what happens when somebody comes and say, I wanna buy 100, I wanna buy 50, right? And then of course they're gonna come and say, I'm not paying $15 for your shirt, they're gonna try to hustle you too. And so you have to be prepared for that, right? So each unit that you're making, okay, I'm calculating $15 for each shirt, but now when I get down to the last 50, those might go for $7. You have to be able to calculate all that. So pen to paper is very important.
How would you do or go about service? No, but it's relevant for this because you just talked about a hard product, but for service, how would you go about charging for a service?
How would I go about charging for a service? You mean in?
Like you just touched on like an actual t-shirt. So
Okay.
you can use like same example for
Oh yes, because my business is a service. So I would go about. You mean how do you find your actual price point? So I would really do what. One more time. Not K. I'm gonna get it. Okay. Yeah. K. I'm gonna call you K for sure. I love nicknames. Dana knows that. What you want to do is see who else is doing what you're doing, right? And so competitors are very important. They don't, it's not for you to, it's for you to see what they're doing. Why are you reinventing the wheel? I mean, you're going to make it a little, whatever, but we're really not reinventing anything, right? We're just like, whatever your industry is, there's probably 100 people in that industry. So you want to see in that spectrum, what is more, what more aligns with your business model, right? And so if that's the upper echelon of your actual industry, then you want to make sure that you're gravitating to those. If you want to have like a mid-range, right? Because let's face it, there's a business model for Dollar Tree. There's a business model for Dollar Tree. They know who their end user is. They know who their target market is. And then Saks is a whole nother, target market. So it's the same. You're gonna have your high price luxury, you're gonna have your mid-level, and you're gonna have your low. So for you to find your price point, you need to then do that research on those particular, in that industry. Who's charging, let's just say, who's charging $2,000 in your industry, and then who's charging $750? See what they're offering, see what their packages are, and then go back to your drawing board, your whiteboard, and then say, what can I add that spices it up, that makes it different, that, gives it a different value that they're not doing? And that's when you're gonna land at your price point. And it's gonna change because inflation changes, right? Yesterday's price, girl, say it again.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and Yolanda, I thank you both, speaker
Yes.
and also alumni in session. I want to give a big round to Yolanda. And we have time right now for a quick 3 questions. They have to be short because we do have to get to some real work where we actually